Hello, hello. Welcome to Human Design Coffee Talk. Tonight we are talking with Kat, a 5-1 reflector, about being a reflector in the matrix. So we're excited to have this conversation tonight. Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Say hey when you're coming in. I'd love to know anything you'd like to share about your design, type profile. Hello, hello. Where I recognize, let's see. Okay, we'll see. Teresa will be hopping on soon. All right, well, there's Kat right now. I can let her.
Oh, it's a little bit too close in.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hello, everybody coming in. Hey, Teresa. Let's see. All right.
Hi.
Hi. It's a party.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Excited to chit chat with you.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm excited. You know I've been MIA, so.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, tell us about that. Why did you decide to get off of Instagram?
So it's actually kind of all social media. The only reason I have TikTok still available is because I know a lot of my videos still help people. So I just haven't created any new content, but like Facebook, Instagram, just decided to get off. It's something I was like working through for a couple months. As you know, Teresa, it's something I was going back and forth with. And I was just kind of like, okay, I don't want to be on here anymore. It just felt, I think a lot of times when I'm in the social realm, I feel overwhelmed. And it's just so much coming in, and I just felt like, okay, maybe it's time to pull the plug. But I do this often where I kind of do like a death and rebirth type of thing.
Yep.
Where I disappear and I come back and I'm like back with new content. I think I've done it twice with TikTok already. So it's just, yeah.
That's something that I definitely noticed with the reflectors in my life. My sister's a reflector, and one of my best friends is a reflector. And they're both like in and out, on and off. And like my sister will be like, I just can't for a while. She just shuts it all down.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know, if they're like the Supreme Court justices, like maybe we should pay attention to what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're like the environment, and they're like, this environment, it doesn't work for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just overwhelming. And it's not like, even the pages I was following were not like super crazy. They were actually in alignment with a lot of the stuff that I talk about or believe in. It's just, I think the pressure of posting or doing it at a certain time, like if it's not in flow, like I don't want to do it. And I was just like, just having an Instagram, I was like, I felt pressured, and I'm like, I don't want this anymore. So yeah, I actually, same, I have a couple reflector friends, and one of them, he actually owns a business. So he'll go in town, like every couple weeks, he'll go in for like 4 or 5 days, and then he's gone for like 4 months. So I think it's like it's a reflector thing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, thank you for creating an Instagram to come on and join us.
You're welcome. My Finsta.
Yeah, we were catching up on the phone the other day, and you were just telling me, you know, about your job experience and dating life and all of these things. And I'm like, I feel like you're one of the few reflectors that I know personally that's in the matrix, right? That's like doing all of the things that a lot of, I would say, at least spiritual people or whatever tend to run from, but especially reflectors, because you know, they tend to not want to be in the middle of all of that. And you're like, I'm going in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's so intense. Like once you have that awareness of your design and how it works, it's crazy to see it at play with people that are not aware at all. And trying to explain to them like your design and like what you do, especially if they're not cognizant of any of this stuff, it's just kind of like, I just have to observe like what's going on. And like with my first job, so I moved to Colorado in January, and my first job, I was working at a real estate company. And initially, it felt really good. It felt good being there. And I think by the second month, I was kind of like, I don't feel so good anymore. And it's more of like, not just for me as a reflector, like a bodily feeling, like my body feeling not up to it, but it's like a mental thing. Like I don't feel like going in anymore. I feel less like passionate about it, and things start to shift. But being in that experience overall, I know there was, it's so weird. There was a guy that I was working with, and I remember I was talking with Teresa and Sarah about this. He was flirting with me, and it's somebody that's not my type, somebody that was not in alignment with me. And like, for whatever reason, like I was flirting back with him. And by the next day, I was just like, ew, like, what was that? Like, why did I do that? And they were like, he was like flirting with himself. So it was so weird to experience that. And I was like, whoa, so this is what that is. And that's why you really, as a reflector, like, if I'm not doing my cycle, like if I'm not waiting a full lunar cycle, like it really does affect me, because the people around me, I feel like, are always amplified in like, whether it's their shadow aspects or just whatever they have underlying going on with them, like it is revealed to me like almost immediately. So if I'm not tuned into myself and living that cycle, it's like I'm messing myself up. I'm setting myself up for failure. Yeah. Yeah.
So what I hear a lot from reflectors, and I was actually just having a conversation with one the other day, it was about like a family environment. And, you know, she's just like, I leave there and I have these like thoughts for days, and I'm processing all this stuff and trying to understand why this family member is doing this. And she's kind of like in the beginning of her deconditioning. And I was like, I'm not a reflector, so I don't know, but it feels like if that doesn't feel good for you until you know what you feel like, if you have feelings, you know what you feel like removing yourself from certain environments until you can kind of like take that on without it being too overwhelming. Did you find yourself having to do that, or did you think that was like valuable for you to do?
Yeah, especially at work. So when I left that job, I needed time to, like, I actually took a couple days off of work. Like I needed time to just come home and process like what I was feeling. Like, is this because I'm overwhelmed? Is it because of like what I'm doing at work? Is it too much? Right. And so by me staying at home and actually processing those feelings, talking with people like Sarah and Teresa are really good soundboards for me. I think as a reflector, you have to have a really good like foundational team that after you process your own emotions, kind of speak to somebody about what you're experiencing. Like you have to speak it out loud and just have like that safe container. And so like speaking with them, like on a few occasions, I was just like, okay, like it's been like past my full cycle. It's time for me to leave. And when I did like leave with like a full email of what I experienced, like bullet pointed. And like, it was like a very reflector-esque like thing. Like I had to like tell them what I was experiencing, but even with family as well. Like anytime I go out, like I know my limit is like 2 hours. Like after I'm out 2 hours of being somewhere, I need time to myself, because it's so intense. And it's similar, I know people say like empath, but it's like deeper than that, because it's almost like you're taking on those characteristics of those people. And so that'll seep into like the way that you're thinking, or like like you were saying, like your friend was saying the next day they were coming up with these thoughts. And I've done things that are very, very similar, where for example, jumping more into dating, I was talking with someone for a couple months, and this person was very pessimistic. He would go from a positive to a negative, and things like, oh, today's beautiful, but it's so cloudy out. And so I started catching myself when I'd wake up and do my gratitude affirmations. Oh, but where's that money going to come from? oh, but I'm going to
Oh,
do this. Like my mind started thinking and taking on those same characteristics as this person. So I knew it didn't feel good to me because when I'm naturally by myself, I don't think like that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 So you are a 5'1",
Hmm.
so kind of like a not a double whammy, but kind of. Not only are you a reflector, but you're getting projected upon.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is that for you being a kind
Oh, I mean, Teresa, if you want to chime in on that one experience with Sarah, like to me it was normal, but if you want to speak on when we went hiking.
Oh, wait. I can't remember what happened. Like,
Yeah,
so,
so
like, I don't know.
we we went hiking. We went hiking and like this guy's like rushing down, like not paying attention, and like pretty much like almost runs Sarah off of the trail. Didn't turn around, didn't say sorry,
Oh,
was so
yes.
abrupt, yeah, and rude. And then like a second later, this lady's like, hi, like super sweet. And they were just like, what? This never happens, but the extremes, the polarities. So I find in any and every environment I'm in, and I thought this was normal,
it is
things are
for you.
extreme. Like they're so extreme. And it's like I see what I've noticed in the pattern, like as I'm journaling and I'm learning more about myself and how I interact with people, is when the people that are more consciously aware of themselves, they tend to like not as intense or triggered. But those that are not aware of themselves and have a lot of shadow work to do are extremely triggered and don't like me, or they're like super abrupt, like how that guy on the trail was just like rushing and not saying anything, pushing Sarah off the trail. Like it's very intense, like complete extremes with any dynamic I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you see that like people coming to you like you can help me or you just wrecked my life? Like that kind of
Yes.
opposite, like that kind of polarity? Yeah.
Yes. So I through, especially through TikTok, like you can scroll through my comments and it's the weirdest thing. You have people like, yes, I love this. And people are like, you are the devil. What? Or someone's like, marry me. And then another person's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're 18 years old. And I'm like, thank you. I'm 30, but okay, I'll take that.
It's like
You're even
put them up on
your
I was
age.
gonna say it's like put them up on the pedestal or burn you
Yeah.
at the stake. It's literally
Yes.
one extreme or the other, and I feel like it's just amplified with you being a reflector.
Yes. Yes. And it happens a lot in family dynamics too. So I have family that's like my younger sister, she's a year younger, and she's just she gets it to an extent. Like she's not fully into this, but she's aware of herself, and she's just like, Katie, you're just so like the way that you are, like you really reflect on things. Like she just sees it for what it is. But then my younger sister's like, you judge me. Like she's always projecting onto me, like, and she's like, I don't feel comfortable talking to you. And I'm like, you're not comfortable with yourself. Like, so yeah, it's in every single dynamic, in dating and work, and that's why it's really important for me too, like working. So I'm in my third job this year. So I went from working in real estate, and then I went to working for a company that dealt with pharmaceutical, medical fittings, and different things like that. And a lot in that job started to be exposed, like racial discrimination, sexual discrimination. And I mean, this company's been open for years, but then I step foot in there and things start to unravel and the truth starts coming out. And that's why I think a lot of people find it either super comforting being around me or super uncomforting, because like the truth, right? So it's like if you're truthful and honest with yourself, it's going to feel comfortable. But if you're not and you're hiding things, it's going to feel extremely uncomfortable being around me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I always notice that with you. When you call me with work shit or dating shit, it's always just like people not being ready to face themselves. And then you just bring this mirror and you're like holding it up to them.
It's tiring because I'm like, when's it my turn?
Right. Yeah. And then throwing the shit on you or like stirring up shit, like projecting on you, not even because you're a fifth line, but I see this with a lot of reflectors because I do this to my sister, you know, and I hear my reflector friend tell me about her family doing it to her, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It happens a lot.
So you mentioned dating, and I'm curious because my sister's, I witnessed her just move through the world, and she's been dating the same person like on and off, but she'll literally be like, and we're not dating now, and then she'll wait a month, and then she'll be like, and we're dating again. Like she'll wait the lunar cycle, whether she's conscious of it or not. She studies human design as well, but I'm just like, that's insane for like the other person. She's like, I need a month break to like see how I feel, and then
Yeah.
so how is dating for you when even if they don't know about design, do you bring it up? Do you explain how you operate? Like,
I do. Yeah, I
yeah.
do. Like, especially when I found out, like I have explained it to people. I think the biggest thing, like I see people that are like, okay, I'm willing to wait that. But what I find so hard about being a reflector and dating is like that first initial month, it just feels like for me, it feels like so intense. And I'm like, yes, like this feels good. Like I like this. And then like after that 30 days, like I can completely flip a switch. And it's like I feel sometimes like through dating, I feel maybe like I used to feel that I was like, I felt like I had no emotion because I was just like, it feels like I just cut them off. Not, I explained to them why, but I mean, like emotionally, like I just am not who I was that first 30 days. And then realizing, like, after speaking with like Sarah and Teresa and learning more about my design, I'm like, okay, that's why, because I was feeling what they were feeling and I was amplifying that. Right. So, but when I was younger, it was just like, it would constantly happen. Like I'd feel this connection with somebody and then I'm like, this doesn't like, no, I'm good on this. But now more than ever, like if I do not wait that full 30 days, like I mess myself up. And that's something that happened recently with someone. It was like super intense. I was really feeling this person and I didn't wait my full 30-day cycle and like kind of burned myself in the process. And it was just kind of like one of those lessons where it's like, this is where I need to hold to my boundaries, right? So it taught me to hold to my boundaries. And with the previous person, like at the beginning of the year that I was talking to, like we did that. But it was just, for me, it's just dating is hard in general. I think just with a lot of like karmic stuff and dealing with like ancestral trauma and things like that, a lot of patterns throughout my family, I feel like I'm breaking. And so because of that, I feel like being a reflector, it's like intensified. So a lot of like similar patterns of like breaking up, getting back together, being the side person or like not feeling enough, like all of that throughout my family. And so me kind of making sure I stick to my boundaries is like pivotal right now.
Yeah, that's huge. That's one thing that I talk to reflectors in my life about a lot. I'm like, they'll bring something up, and I'm like, boundaries, man. I feel like you guys need like to have solid boundaries and to know them for yourself, and to give you plenty of time to. I'm going to set this boundary, and then I'm going to wait and see how this feels, incorporating this boundary into my life.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
huge.
Yeah,
So
well, you also have 59.5, which if anybody
Ah,
knows anything about
yeah,
59.5, so do I, but it's literally called the Femme Fatale or
yeah,
Casanova. And
yeah.
what happens when you have 59.5 is people project onto you that you're the perfect woman, right?
oh my
Like, oh my
gosh.
gosh, you're the perfect woman. And then when you fall down from that pedestal or when you reflect to them something they don't want to see, then all
Yeah.
comes tumbling down.
Yeah. I've noticed too, I really need someone or would like someone that understands when I process things and how I observe and like feeding them that information. Because there's the past 2, 3 connections that I've had when I observe and go through my 30-day cycle, right, of waiting. I think somebody asked what when you say wait, what are you waiting for? It's like I'm waiting for my 30-day cycle. So when I start talking to someone, I go through that entire 30-day or lunar cycle before making a decision on moving forward with them. So, but what I've realized is that a lot of these connections, when I'm like expressing what I'm feeling or what's transpiring or what I'm observing, when I tell them, they're not ready to hear that. Like they're not. It's like they kind of start falling back. Like they're not ready to hear it, or yeah, that truth part, right? So it's like, it's really hard for people to even hear it. It's not so much just mirroring it to them, but like hearing it, it's like a lot. So that pedestal and right, telling someone the truth about who they really are kind of comes down.
Oh no, you're not just my femme fatale.
Well, that too, like we were talking about this, Teresa, like I'm a Scorpio too. So Scorpios are death and rebirth. And it's like, I feel like 5-1 reflector Scorpio. It's like, so I decided like level 1000 difficulty incarnating. I was like, let's do it.
Let's go. Power up.
Yes.
Well,
How
like
have
if
you been?
anybody could handle that.
Yeah. I mean, you have, at least your aura is resilient, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's like the aura thing too. I think can tend. I've had clients, they're like, you feel so ethereal, like they don't know about human design, and so hearing about like how our auric fields as a type is different as well, I'm like, this makes sense. But I feel like that also draws in a lot of people that like need healing, right? And always want to come to me like, you can heal me or fix me, especially people with like deep shadow work.
Yeah. So what was that like? Because I know you were doing like spiritual coaching for a while and that kind of stuff. What was that like for you? Because I know you ended up deciding to stop.
Yeah. It was a beautiful experience. I met some really great people that were actually ready and willing to do the work. But I realized, and this is why I stopped doing it, is that people were projecting onto me and not ready to do the work. And I even had at one point someone just kind of like, you should change the way that you're doing this process, and just like trying to tell me how to run things. And I was just like, this is what I feel comfortable with, and this is what flows with how I work. But they were projecting onto me, and it was just, it's intense because again, I was finding people, I had people that were ready to do it, were doing the work and really excelled, and we are still like really on good terms. But I have people that got upset or couldn't do the work or couldn't hold themselves accountable, and would project that onto me, like this is too much work, or like, get really upset, especially when I would do energy work. So I started doing Reiki and energy work, and then going into coaching and counseling, but more towards like shadow work is what I was doing with people. And in these conversations, or when I was doing the energy healing, I could feel all of their energy and things that were coming up. And when I would tell them, they were like not ready to face that. Like, no, that's not right. And then a week later, they're like, you were right. But then they project the next week. And I'm like, this is too much. Yeah. It's intense. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're also inner vision and guilt motivation.
Yeah.
So not here to fuck around.
Did you say need motivation or guilt?
Guilt. Yeah, guilt, motivate, judgment, sense. Some powerful stuff.
How did you get so lucky? 5-1 reflector, inner vision.
I know.
Guilt, motivation.
I know. My chart's
yeah, I mean, guilt, motivation, you're here to help people take action, right? So it's like people aren't coming to you for you to hope that they get better.
Yeah. Well, and
that's
with
brandy.
that too, you almost need them to just be like a one and done, because you're not defined to sustain like a long going, like helping them down the path. You're like the magic wizard that appears on the path and then disappears.
I love that.
Yeah.
When's it gonna show up again? We don't know. We just keep watching the path.
You like disappear in some pixie dust.
I mean, a lot of the reflectors that I know are energy workers, or because they're just like, I've had this thing my whole life, I don't know what it is, and I can sample the energy of the room and I know what's going on. And especially when they have like 4th, 5th, or 6th cognition, super spidey sense of things. And that's very interesting.
And she's a direct termination. You're just an alien.
What's her arrows?
Her only left arrow is her environment arrow. I should have sent you her chart. I didn't even think to do that.
All right.
So prepared. But yeah, so she's active environment, but otherwise all right.
You know, I bet that attributes to her, like, you know, a little bit more functionable as far as like active in her environment versus passive. Having that would be nice. Because a lot of the reflectors that I know, they're super chill, super floaty, you know, a lot, very right variables. I haven't met a lot with a lot of left. So that's very
Well, don't
interesting.
I have like cross of defiance too? I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
that
Oh,
speaks
of
to,
course
like,
you would. Yeah.
I'm just like super esoteric and direct. I'm like in your face sometimes. It just really depends on the environment. Like the job that I landed now, like I love. So it's like a tech company, and it's run by women, and it feels very feminine, because most of the jobs I've worked for, like 9 to 5, clock in at this time, clock out this time, like you have to be sitting at your desk, like very direct, and that doesn't flow with me. And the job I'm at now is so like, and it's feminine. It's a startup. And so because it's a startup, they're like, what can we fix? What do we need to implement? What is working? What isn't working? And I'm like, this is perfect. On top of, I don't have to go into work at a certain time. I don't have to start at a certain time. I can go to the office if I feel like it. Like I can end at any point in the day as long as I get what I need to done. It's just super flowy and works with how I work. So it's so interesting that I manifested that, because that's exactly what I wanted.
So were you initiated into, how did that job come to be for you?
Sure. So it came through as someone that reached out to me via email. So the recruiter, she was just like, I just think that you'd be perfect for this. Like, you're so straightforward, and like, this is something we really need. We need somebody that's going to tell us what's working, what's not. And I was like, that's exactly who I am. Like, I observe and like figure out what's working and find better methods or modalities or processes that will make things like more efficient. So like being in this space has been very interesting, because a lot of it is like Gen Z, millennial. Like, you don't have anybody else like older than that. And so everybody's into, like, I was talking about human design with them. I was talking about astrology, and they're all like gawking, like, I want to know more. Like, they're not opposed to it. And so letting them all know, even the company owner, like, hey, I'm a reflector. Like, this is what I do. And she's like, cool, let's see what happens. Let's work it. Like, she's, you know, cool with it. Is very, very different than like anywhere else I've been. So yeah, it's been interesting working in like regular workspaces as a reflector. This most, like I said, the most recent job where there was like sexual discrimination and racism there, it was just crazy. When I was leaving, it was interesting. The last meeting that I had with the manager. So at this point, I started finding out these different things, right? Like gossiping and, you know, racial slurs and just different things being thrown out. And I wasn't okay with it. The manager was, I think she knew I found out because there were emails that were sent to me that were not supposed to be sent to me. And I was a part of that email. Yes. And so like, truth coming out, right? The truth was coming out. And so I got reclusive. I just started staying to myself, just kept working, and she would do things like, hey, how was the weather outside? I was like, nice. Kept working. Hey, what did you have for lunch? This. Like, I would be very short with her, and she started to notice this. So like right before I was getting ready to move on to a new position, she pulled me into the office at the end of the day. It was like 4:30, and she's just like, I just need to tell you, you're being extremely hostile, and it's making everyone uncomfortable. Like, we can't even hold a cordial conversation. And I was like, well, can you give me an example of what you're referring to? She's like, well, the other day I asked you, like, how is the weather? And I was like, and I told you it was good. I told you I'm going straight to work. I only want to work. I don't want to have personal, like, outside conversations. She's like, well, that's like very hostile. And she was like projecting all of this onto me. And she's just like, I think you just need to, you know, get over it, and you need to be good with everybody so that it's not so like hostile and the work environment can flow. You need to get along with your colleagues. And I was like, I'm not going to risk my comfortability to make everyone else comfortable. I'm still processing the emails that you sent to me. So if you can't give me that space to process this, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, you can't tell me when and when not to feel these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so next day I was let go. But yes, she like projected, and I already had this position with this new company. So
Yeah.
I already knew it was coming, but it was very much not in alignment with me, but just interesting to see how she was projecting onto me for like 15 minutes, like,
Yeah.
hostile, you're this, and you don't talk to anybody. And it was just, yeah. So workspace, being a reflector, has been intense.
So before you found out about your design,
Mhm.
were you always like somebody that waited a long time or felt like you needed to do these things before you had the language, or was finding out about your design kind of like this permission slip for you to do the thing that you've always felt?
I would say in relationships or getting to know people, no. I just would immediately go with my emotions, and I wouldn't have that heart coherence, right, of the brain and the heart and working those two together. It was always like emotions, I feel good, I like how I'm feeling, and then just go with it, like rush into things. With work, with family, with friendships, I did have like, there were times I did, but I would say it wasn't until I started having my awakening that I felt I started to process things and take time to myself, kind of meditate on it. But then when I found out about my design, it definitely gave me I was like, okay, this is working, right? So when I started to realize the patterns, started to see like me being a reflector and how I interact with others, that I need that space and that time to see and discern what's really mine and what's not. Like, it's pivotal. It's like so pivotal. And what I've come to realize is that as a reflector too, we're so tied to the planets. Like, we're so tied to like the planetary alignments and how they affect us. And I'm starting to see that more and more and more now. Like, when things start to go retrograde and how they affect me is like also intense. So I have to be cognizant of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, how have you been feeling? I mean, the transits have been a shit show the
Yeah.
last like 2 months.
How have you been feeling being an
Like
MG?
you've been a manifesting generator for a while because of that 2034. Have you
Yeah.
noticed a shift in your behavior or the way you feel over the last like 2 months?
Yeah. I think I was coming out of a space of like huge integration, but then once I got out of that, I'm like, I need to do this, I need to do that, like just a bunch of like fire. Felt very like fire energy. I'm like, and then I'm just getting stuff done and getting like, it's a very different energy for sure. I actually love being around manifesting generators, especially those that are living their design. I feel like what it makes me feel like as a visual, right? So that inner vision is, if you're going hiking or sitting on top of a hill and you have like that grounding, like feeling to Mother Earth, like that is how I feel when I'm around manifesting generators that are in like flow in their design, living their type. The ones that I always feel iffy about are generators.
Interesting. Yeah, what's the difference for you?
So at least the generators I've come across, like generators feel very like almost like offloading, like they give so much energy at once, and it makes me feel overwhelmed. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me process this. Like, I had a generator friend, you know my generator friend Hermes, so we can talk for hours about like esoteric stuff, but then it's like I get to a point where like, okay, I'm not going to talk to you for weeks now because I need that space to
Yeah.
kind of like process everything. But it's like so intense, right? The ones that I do know that are generators, like someone I work with, she's not like living in her design, but she is a generator. And so her, like, I feel like she gets clingy at times and very like wants to know everything, wants to be around me. It's like, it's just kind of like makes me feel like this, like I'm being like pressured if someone's around me in a room. But I haven't met too many projectors, but I would say definitely manifesting generators like feel really, really, really grounding to be around. Yeah.
I wonder if it's just because like we have a motor to the throat, and so it's like we don't need that from you, and maybe some people that you're engaging with, you're bridging them in some way, or your electromagnetics are doing something, and so you're kind of experiencing that.
Maybe she's a split death generator and you like plug in and she's like, I am whole, be by
Yeah.
me. I think interesting that you mentioned that you feel grounded around manifesting generators in their flow.
Why?
I
Is it
feel
like
like we're like
intense?
hummingbirds. We're just like
We're like the least grounded things when we're in flow. It's just like
Oh my gosh, it's funny.
so I was just like feeling that when you were talking about, you know, when you're hiking and you feel grounded to the earth, and I was like, nobody has ever said that about me. But to hear a reflector say that, I'm like, that's fucking
I know
cool.
your face. You're like, really?
like, okay.
All right.
I love it. That's awesome. I know, because I feel like if you were to even compare like Sarah and I feel like she's so much more grounded than me, but I'm like
You know, and my son's a manifesting generator too. So it's like being around him, like it just feels like a little best friend because like he's like a soundboard. Like, and that's why I was saying,
Oh,
yeah, like
yeah.
easy to talk to, like just gets it, like this. So it's like that's how I feel the majority of the time with manifesting generators. But especially like my intimate circle, like you as a reflector, you have to have that. Like you have to have that time where you process things and then come to them just as a safe container and just them holding space for you. And I didn't realize that at all until like I was speaking with Sarah and Teresa and them expressing like, yeah, just listening to me. I was like, well, this is new. Like I'm used to people like chiming in and you need to do this, you need to do that, you should do that. Well, they're like, well, how do you feel? Like, what does that make you feel? Have you waited your full cycle? Like, like I'm like, whoa, like this allows me to fully like reflect on things.
yeah. Reflector.
Reflector.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think it's just human design just gives us such a language to understand everybody. I remember when you and I first started talking, we met on TikTok and then just started voice noting and becoming friends. And you were explaining to me how your friendships, especially female friendships, had gone in the past and they tend to go sour. And I'm like, well, yeah, because you're a reflector.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know you. And I feel so seen by you. And I'm like, because I'm looking at your chart.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, so it felt so different. Like even like, especially, it just made sense. Like when I was younger, especially with women, like the jealousy and like competing. And I was just like, why is this like a common theme when it comes to females? Like in my family, like my cousins at school, when I was in school, just everywhere. And then I was like, okay, it's like I'm reflecting those parts of themselves they're not accepting, like they're not happy with them, like or how they look or whatever the case may be, whatever they were judging me for. So it was just very like once like Teresa said that, I'm like, yes, it makes sense. It's like those puzzle pieces coming together. And I think that's what's beautiful about human design is like it's so in depth, to be honest. Like I'm like, I know the very surface details and some of the gates, I don't know every little thing. And I'm just like, it's so much information. But like once you get the gist of how your design works and how strategy works, like it really allows you to be in flow with the universe. And like everything that's happening, you know that you're intentionally manifesting that. Like it's not like it's just like programming or manipulation from things that are, you know, pushing that towards you. You are living in your design, and by doing so, you're intentionally manifesting your reality. So
Yeah, it's like it gives people like keys
yes.
to this whole Maya because we all operate differently. And so something that works for you, you know, if you're telling a splenic person that they need to wait 30 days, it's not going to work, right? So
Yeah.
it just gives people, and I think that comes back to like, we're all meant to like manifest, right? Or we're all meant to, yeah, we're all meant to do that, but just not in the sense of what manifestation culture ends up selling you, because we all function differently. So things are going to manifest into your reality depending on your strategy and authority.
Yeah. So you brought up your son.
Yeah.
So let's talk about parenting. How is parenting as a reflector?
Oh, it's I think being a parent in general is hard, but it's the most rewarding. So it's like, and then when you find out about holding space and things like that, you have to remember to also do that for them, right? So as a reflector, I know that like my son, he's actually very chill, very grounding, but when he has his moments where he's like going through a lot of emotions, and then I amplify that, and I might get angry, or I might raise my voice. I'm like, I have to realize to like hold space for him, right? And take time and process and be away from him, then come back and speak with him and ask him how he's feeling and why. So it's different, especially knowing our designs and explaining. He understands that too. So I have him research human design and what a reflector is and what a manifesting generator is, so that he has that, you know, awareness of what that means. And he'll see me, he's like, oh mom, like he'll knock on my door, never mind, I know you're doing your reflector thing or meditating. Like he just knows, like he just knows. He's like, he has to take like, and then him too, like he has moments where he's like overwhelmed with emotion, and I think he is like a solar
Solar
plexus.
plexus, yeah.
Yeah. So I think with that, like he knows like he needs to like really take time to himself as well when he gets that way. But yeah, just being a parent in general, again, and having that awareness, I think it definitely changes the way that I react or respond to things when it comes to him, or just in general. So, and because he's always watching, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm not, if I'm not doing something, he's like, yeah, but you did that the other day. And I'm like,
Yeah.
darn, you got me there.
Well, and what a gift too, to have him being emotional and seeing a parent that waits a long time to make a decision. It really allows that space for him to ride his emotional wave, even if he doesn't know what he's doing. You know, he's witnessing, oh, let's wait, you know.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah. And he noticed, he picked up on that when, with this job, right? So the one that I just got or the one I was let go of, I came back to the house, and I was happy, right? So I picked him up. I was like, you get a half a day. We're home. He's like, well, why? I was like, I don't work there anymore. And he's like, and he's like, what? And he's freaking out, like super emotional. I was like, Junior, go to your room and take some time to yourself. He comes out and he's like, but mom, like, it's your job. I said, Junior, I waited my cycle. Like mom already has something else lined up. And he's like, okay. He's like, I love that.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I love that you don't even like know that much about human design, because this is really showing people what just the basics can do for you. Like you're teaching your kid about it, and you've really integrated your strategy and authority without diving in too deep, you know, and getting lost in the sauce, and it's been able to make such a huge impact on your life.
Yeah, it has. And like every aspect, I think the biggest takeaways for me with human design, right? Because I use a lot of different methods and modalities. Like I use astrology, I use, you know, the cosmos and planetary alignments. I use a bunch of different things, but I think as a reflector, you have to, like, right. So we're sampling modalities as well. So not just sticking to one thing, but I think the biggest thing that I love about human design is like when you're living your design and doing that strategy, like it works. It just works. Like if I do not wait that 30 days or that lunar cycle, like I know I'm getting myself into some trouble. Like I have to have time to process. I have to have time to myself. But I also realize I really love community. And part of that is like right now, like I live in the downtown Denver, right? And I'm thinking of moving like more out to the outskirts and doing something like that. But it's like, but I also love being around people. Like it's like a different energy for me. Like it just feels good most of the time. There are times when I'm in a collective energy and it just feels like I'm drained immediately, like a battery. So I'm like going from this smiling and then I'm just like that. It becomes a lot. So
Well, your Valley's
What's her
environment.
Yeah. Okay.
Valleys, yeah. Which, and we were just talking about that the other day, because your kid and your husband are Valleys, and we're like, what? Like I know what the source material says about it, but in real life, what does it look like?
What is Valleys?
So I don't know.
Yeah. But it's community. It's like what I'm noticing is like acoustics. I don't know if you notice how you feel. My husband right now is testing out moving his office to our loft, because he was in the basement, which is like a cave. And so he wasn't feeling good. And I've already noticed a difference in him over the past 2 days of him working in the loft. He just is more alive. And my son, that's where he hangs out too. And one's Valley's narrow, one's Valley's wide, but they're both valleys. And there's something about the acoustics in the valley, you know. I don't
Yeah.
know. So my house creates that kind of acoustic sound, so they both like chill up there, and then they're good. Like I've noticed a huge difference. So I don't know about like living, but I don't know if you notice anything about sounds, or if you feel better when you can like hear the things and hear the ongoings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to test that out. I just know like where I'm at right now. Like, I came back from Chicago over the weekend, and Chicago's more flat than just cities, right? A bunch of cities.
Yeah.
And then coming out to Denver every time, like it just feels good. Like seeing the mountains, like it just feels good being here. Like especially the environment. And that's something that played a big part too. Like when I initially left the Chicago, like it feels like going back, like it just, the energy is more dense there. Like it's just so dense. Like I can energetically feel like shifts in certain places. Like when I went to Arizona, like to visit Sarah and Teresa, like I was like, it feels like airy, and like it just felt airy out there, like very like I can't explain. Like it just felt different. Like Chicago feels dense, it feels compact. I come out here and it just feels comfortable. But in Arizona, it felt like airy. Like I just like wanted to float away. Like that's how it felt. Yeah.
Which is interesting because we're in the valley, like the Valley of the Sun is what they call Phoenix. But I could see how just being like surrounded by mountains might feel good for a valleys person. And you can always create that in your home space if you don't have mountains around you.
Yeah. When we were driving to Sedona, when we were coming like that way that goes down from Flagstaff or whatever, and we were going down into the valley of it, and my husband was like, oh my gosh, this is life. And he doesn't know much about his human design environment, so it wasn't even like he connected it, but he was driving, he was like, holy shit, this feels so good. Like
Oh
witnessing his body just like ah. And I'm like, okay. And there's like houses down there, and he's like, whoa, we could get a house down here. And I'm like, it's too, like, it feels closed in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I love that. I have to try to experience that.
Yeah.
See how it feels.
Projector Emily says, always in the center of rooms or spaces where things surround us. Yes, exactly. Like around things. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mentioned this on another video, but now I have to bring it up. Especially if you're not feeling well, you get in your environment if you're over 30. So it helps recovery. And when my husband had COVID, I shoved him in the cave bedroom, and he kept coming upstairs and being like, I feel so much better when I'm laying on the couch. And I was like, go in the basement. And I didn't even think about his environment, but I was like, go in the cave.
Go into the cave.
He'd come upstairs. He's like, no, I really notice a difference in how I feel when I'm in on the couch, surrounded by everybody else. And I'm like, oh shit, that makes sense.
Wow. Huh.
So yeah,
I find like it depends for me, like especially like this past year. I feel like there's moments where I like to be on the outskirts of like the group dynamic. Like I like observing and just taking it all in. But then there are moments where like I do like to be around people, but it shifts a lot for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really like how you mentioned having that like core group of trusted people that you can soundboard off of.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is. And I didn't realize that until I had it. Right. So even not just from like a human design standpoint, but just friendships in general, right? Or relationships, having that core foundation of what an honest, authentic, like unconditional loving, like safe space looks like is good, because it's like gives you this base foundation, like moving forward with other friendships or relationships, like this is what it should feel like. So it gives me that example of like this sampling, right? Sampling what that feels like and knowing it feels good moving forward with anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up your first line, and you kind of did.
Keynoting your own chart. Need a foundation.
So with your first line, unconscious, well, I know you. Yes, you're quite an investigator. How is that in your life, this investigative nature? Because that can probably be like people saying like, you don't need to know that, da da da. You don't need to like, why are you digging into that? But you're like getting to that foundation, understanding it all.
People that know me call me Super Spy or Cat Holmes.
Super spy.
They're like, okay, Cat Holmes. And I'm like, okay, because I thought it, so initially, right before learning about human design and all that, like Scorpios in general, right? Like we love mystery, we love the occult, we love those types of things. So I'm like, I attributed it to that, but it's like on such a deeper level. And then learning my human design, I'm like, oh, this is why. Like if you look at my TikTok, it's about secret programs, it's about exposing like genetically modified food and getting all this information out to people. And it's like I was so passionate about that, about researching it so heavily that like I completely understood it and can explain it to others. And I'm like, why am I like this? Like why do I have to know every little thing? And it's like I'm just that way. I think the only thing like when it comes to modalities, I like learning the surface information and I'm like, oh, that resonates and I take a piece of that. This resonates, I take a piece of that. So like taking bits and pieces.
Sampling.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yep.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I love that.
Yeah.
You're quite a trusted source there, Reflector 5-1. I mean, like literally, you're just like need to go to like tell you how it is, that truth in all the ways. And not only that, but you have all the information about it. And then they're either going to love you or hate you after you tell them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
they might burn you at the stake.
In my early 20s, I was so straightforward and I thought it was like a beautiful thing. I'm like, well, I'm being honest. Like, but I would say it's so like rough, right? Versus being like compassionate and making sure it's like at least good timing and delivering that message in a way where I knew that person could comprehend. And I think a lot of that too is like, even with TikTok, like trying to break down these really like epigenetics, right? Talking about epigenetics and trying to break that down to a platform in 1 minute and how to explain what that means. You really have to investigate a lot and really reword things to where it's comprehensible. So it's like I that's like probably like one of the main things like on the side. If I'm not investigating, like I feel like I'm not me. Like I'm not living my design. I feel unhappy. Like if I don't at least like read something for a week, I'm like I feel out of alignment. I really do. Like something I have to do.
Gotta dig. I mean, it's amazing how articulate you are in those videos. I would always be like, how does she explain something so complex in 60 seconds? Like, and you would take on big shit and just be like, you're like, I'm gonna make a video on this. I'm like, how are you gonna explain that in 60 seconds? I don't know.
So for those that are watching, what's your TikTok in case they're like, ooh.
Yeah, so it's energy flow, but it's ENERG_YFLOW.
Yeah, we'll tag it in the caption as well.
Perfect. And then I don't know how to pronounce that name. I'm sorry, but you asked when my birthday is. It's November 10th, so 11/10 is my birthday. Yeah, big Scorpio energy.
Yeah. Big Scorpio vibes. And her root is lit. She literally has every single gate of the root except for 52 and 19. Wow. So big root energy.
Expand on that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I mean the root center is the adrenaline center, and when I see a root like yours as on a reflector, I just imagine you plugging into certain people in certain places. And if you have electromagnetics, you're kind of giving them that, it's a pressure center. So you're giving them that adrenaline, that adrenalized feeling. It's also a lot about drive. And you have gate 54, which is the gate of drive. So I feel like that's why it kind of works for you to be in some of these like high powered, like you're in real estate, now you're in tech, like it's just these like high powered, like driven type of industries, and you excel in those places. But it's like you also bring this defiant energy that's like, well, I don't do things the way everybody else does, and you have this like revolutionary type of energy. So it's really amazing to see.
Yeah. That makes so much sense, especially the revolutionary. I feel like anywhere I go, I feel like I'm always opposing, and it's not purposeful. It's just like, this isn't working. And I'm like telling people, and yeah, either they praise me or I'm burning.
Yeah, well, your design Earth is in gate 49, which is revolution. So that's like what grounds your body almost, is this revolutionary energy, right?
Wow. Yeah, I love that. That's like that's me. Like any space I go into, it's like it's completely changed. Relationships, friendships, work dynamics. It's like I step into there and like expect it not to be the same. It's not going to be the same while I'm there or when I leave. It's just not going to be the same.
Gonna burn it all down.
Yeah. Speaking of, so that like most recent job, like they actually have a lawsuit now against them. I can't speak too much on it, but yeah, so I kind of started that.
Of course you did.
I know.
Good. Good. Somebody's asking if you were born in 1989.
91. 91. Yeah. So I want to say one of the most weird experiences as a reflector being in person with people was probably with, again, Sarah and Teresa. When we were laying down, it was like electric energy. Like one was on one side and the other one was on the other side. And I haven't heard anyone else, like as a reflector, when I speak with my reflector friends, experience this, but it felt like vibration moving up and down, like electric. Super, super weird.
I wonder if that was sacral energy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was interesting though.
You were in the middle of us, weren't you?
I was in the middle of you two.
Valleys. Yeah. Like the three of us were laying on my like Shea lounge, and she was in the middle, like hamburger in the middle of us. And we were just laying there like feeling all the sensations. And so you must have been, I mean, I could feel a lot of things, but you must have been really amplifying like our sacral energy. It's that buzzy energy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I was like, what's happening? Sarah
blasting off.
Yes. It felt that way. It really did. Like, I know I was like laying next to Sarah at one point and I was just like, is that your phone? Because it was like, that's how intense it was.
Wow.
It felt like my physical body was like just vibrating. Like, and I think a lot of it deals with too is like that activation. I think when we connect with certain people and that have certain gates, like it's like a literal activation.
Well, that root you got, and I don't know what Sarah's root looks like, but I know what Teresa's looks like, and you definitely had a defined root around her.
Yeah, Sarah does too. She's
even though you're less likely activated by people and more by the transits, you're more influenced, I should say, by the transits. Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah. The root
is on fire.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have electromagnetics in our roots.
So did you notice when you were younger that you felt like different than everybody else?
All the time. All the time. So not just because, so I mean, obviously, like I said, like when finding out my human design, like it just, the dots connected. I had a lot of higher sensory abilities. So I would see a lot of things. I grew up Christian. So growing up Christian in church, I was told I was a prophet. And I prophesied and I had premonition and I would do these things, right? So, but when I would tell them about themselves in the church and things that I was seeing or hearing or like feeling, like, no, that's for you. They'd project it back onto me and I didn't know what that meant. Yeah. So I was kind of getting shunned, like for my gifts at one point. They're like, no, no. I think that message is for you. I think that this, and I'm like, no, it's for you. And they're like, no, or like things that I would see, they're like, no, nobody could see that. Nobody can see so-and-so, that person's too holy, right? And so going through that, definitely I felt different, but then also going through school, I never fit in one specific group. I was with everyone. I was like the only light-skinned girl with all of one group of people, and then I was like the only girl with the soccer team, the only girl with the emo kids, the only girl like with all the Hispanic girls, or all like I was everywhere. never fit just in one space, and I was constantly shifting. But it was also very ungrounding as I got older, because I was like, I don't have like one defined friend group. I don't have anybody I could really depend on, anybody I could really talk to. And so going through not just the church thing, sorry, going through the church thing, but then also going through my gifts, and then going through just trying to figure myself out, right? Like when you're a child, an adolescent, and then growing into that, like just figuring yourself out, a lot of it was very interesting, very different. I always felt different, but I would attribute that a lot to my gifts, my like supernatural psychic abilities, prophet gifts as a kid. Yeah.
That undefined G, man. Wow.
Yeah. Well, also like the inner vision as a kid. Like, weren't we talking to Amy Ruth about that? How isn't her kid inner vision? And he was like predicting things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
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 Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes so much sense.
So do you find surprise often? Do you find that you're surprised, that reflector signature?
I do. When I'm living in my designer, when I'm like feeling like I'm in flow, that's when I find it. So for example, like this job, right? So I knew that what I was doing and where I was previously was like not working, and I was seeking something else. And then all of a sudden, because I already opened that door, right? So I was already open to new opportunities. And then I get an email, I had a new opportunity. So it was like a surprise for me. So it typically happens when I'm already like working in my strategy, or like living in my design, or like investigating, right? So everybody talks about going down the rabbit hole, right? So when I'm investigating and I'm searching these different topics, I will find things that just like feel almost like I know it already. Like this is information I already know. And so I love that I'm doing what I love and passionate about, and I'm already like feeling that surprise, like, oh, why does this resonate with me? Like I feel like this has happened before. And then I start getting these activations and these downloads of like previous lives or things that have happened, and it's like, okay, it's all like coming together. So yes, I definitely feel that disappointment too, right? So before Teresa's told me about that, I never, anytime somebody, like I'm having a quarrel with someone or something's going on, they're like, just don't be mad at me. Like, you don't need to be upset. I'm like, I'm not upset. I'm disappointed. Like, I never say I'm mad. I never say I'm upset or pissed off. It's always like, I'm disappointed. Like, so I'm like, when I read that, like, I laughed so hard, because I'm like, I say this all the time.
Because like you can really feel people's potential. So then when they let you down, you're just like, oh God.
And that's where that dating comes in, right? So dating is so hard, because I see people's potential all the time, and it just irritates me. Like, when's it my turn?
Oh man, I can feel it. It's coming for you. I feel like it's like one thing at a time. Everything's starting to fall into place for you the more that you live your design.
Yeah, just following your strategy, like you said, and it just you almost can't even imagine what's going to happen. Like allowing for that surprise at that level. It's just like I couldn't have even planned that. I couldn't have even like visualized that, how it worked out.
Yeah, and also understanding like how it feels. Like you said, you had to kind of get burned. You had to burn yourself and rush into that relationship, and then get disappointed to see that that's not the way to do it for you, And I remember it was like, I don't know, it was a while ago, but you were seeing somebody new, and I'm like, remember because it's like the first week, and you're like, oh, so excited, And I'm like, read the 30 days, and then it was like each week I would talk to you, and you'd be in a totally different mindset with the person.
It's so weird. You know what I do now? And this is like anybody that's a reflector or has a reflector friend. I have like this like chart. And so like the first column is like how I felt before, how I felt during, how I felt after. What were the patterns? What do I need to heal within myself? So there were two people that I seen a reoccurring pattern, and I was like, what is this? Like, why is this coming up? And then sure enough, it was like childhood stuff, like with my dad. And I'm like, oh, like I literally manifested you to reflect that to me, and I was reflecting this to you. Like, it's just so, yeah, I will shift. It's so weird. It's like a chameleon. Like, I don't know. You have to see it, Brandy. Like, I'll have to, when I start talking to somebody new, you have to see me like that first week, the second week, and then by the 30 days, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not talking to him anymore.
Well, I'm curious too, because reflectors are here to be initiated. And so I would almost, you know, experiment with dating as a reflector is like being initiated by somebody else.
Well, I feel like you're always talking about wanting like that divine masculine energy. So it makes sense because like you need to be initiated. You don't.
Yeah, just bring in like an ego manifester.
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, I've heard that reflectors and manifestors tend to have harmony. I mean, obviously, if it's correct, there's no blanket statements here, but just because you are the two types that kind of relate to reality a little bit differently, well, very differently than projectors and generators, because you're both more affected by the transits and in relationship with the transits in a different way. And probably have that feeling of being an alien. I feel like a lot of manifestors and reflectors both feel that way. So yeah, it might be interesting if the universe brings you
a
manifester.
It's so funny because anybody I talk to now, I'm like, what's your time of birth? Like, I'm like, I need to know your human design. I need to know your big three in astrology. Let's go. I need to know what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I did it. Like we were on the phone that day when you were dating that newer guy, and I'm like telling you all.
I sent you the chart, and I'm like, let me know what's going on.
If you date Kat, just know all of us are going to analyze the shit out of you.
Right? There's a group. There's a group of us.
Cosmically profiling everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I love it. I think this is so helpful.
I'm not sure. Again, I'm not like really, I'm not too in depth with like super in depth with human design. I know the surface details, but I'm curious as to if each design type might be associated with like a starseed group or a certain genetic, you know, that's been coming up. So I was just, I don't know. I might have to investigate.
You have to investigate. Yeah. I have no idea. My open head's like, I don't know.
I'm so uncertain.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, does anybody have questions?
Oh, Found Human Design says, I was the same, but I'm the opposite. I have all 9 centers defined.
Wow.
Whoa.
You guys are like,
I want to know how that
complete opposites.
Yeah. Be around them.
That's
That'll be interesting to sample that energy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder, quad split?
Yeah, triple or quad split maybe.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add, Kat? Anything we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about?
No, it's been beautiful. I think I have a question. Let's see. No, you know, I haven't. I have one projector colleague, but I haven't really come into like any connections with projectors. Most of like my connections are like MGs or generators, are the people that I seem to like gravitate towards me. So I haven't had anything really with like projectors too many experiences, but I think with this colleague, we'll find out.
Yeah, I feel like that'll be interesting for you. I wonder, like, because your nodes are what brings you the people in your life, right? And maybe if you're just in a season of your life where you need that generator energy. But your nodes are all in root gates. Like every single one of your nodes is in a root gate too. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe you're just needing that like fiery energy right now, but projectors can still have fiery energy, of course, but maybe in this like next phase of life, you'll bring in a projector through your nodes to be close with.
Yeah.
Never know. We never know.
Right.
No choice.
Right. Well, they're starting to manifest. Like I said, I got a work colleague, and I was like, oh yes. I was like, this will be fun, just to see what that feels like.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It'll be a different experience for you.
It will. Let's see. I can't read some of the questions if you guys want to
Oh,
read them.
I'll read it. Yeah. Travis says, what does surprise feel like? Does it seem like that's what life, I was like, what is that word? Does it seem like that's what life is about for you, is surprise?
I think it's just like, so the way that I look at the matrix, right? And so since we're on the topic of reflector and the matrix, I use different methods and modalities, and I find codes within the system. What I mean by that, like people see synchronicities, right? 777. People see different things. When I know I'm living in my human design, like I have that surprise feeling. So it's not just that, but it's just an indicator for me that I am in flow and that I'm in alignment. When I'm feeling that surprise with new opportunities, with new friendships, with relationships, with family members, like if something, an opportunity there, like even if we're just bonding and I feel that surprise or I feel like super elevated, I know like it's just an indication for me that I'm in alignment.
Yeah, like you're almost taken off guard with it. Like, oh shit, wow, I wasn't expecting this, and it's kind of that feeling.
Yes. Yes. Because there's no expectation, right? So it's just like when you're just going and you're, again, living your strategy and doing your strategy and your design, there's no expectation there. And so because of that, which is something that I had to deal with because I'm always like analyzing that investigator, right? So I'm always like, I want to know, I need to know. And then I'll start using like my gifts to try to figure things out. And when I realize like just to release that expectation, I have that more, like the surprise is more than what I expected, right? So I have this initial like what I want, but the surprise comes in like even deeper. So yeah.
Can I just say that I fucking love how you say strategy and only strategy?
I was gonna point that out too.
Because you have no authority. So it's just like when you use strategy and people, we're just so used to saying strategy and authority. I'm just like, yes. A reflector just saying strategy. I love it. Because so much in the human design world, I think that gets lost in the sauce of human design with like we're saying strategy and authority, and reflectors like, I don't have one. Like I'm feeling left out.
Yeah.
I only have a strategy.
I know. I love how it says authority lunar cycle. I'm like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Strategy, wait 30 days, wait a lunar cycle. Authority, some of them will say none.
Mm-hmm.
Some chart places will say none, and I'm like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Thinking something, but no,
So
I just wanted to point that out. I just love how you're like strategy.
Yeah.
There's another question. As a reflector, do you know any reflectors, and have you noticed some similarities or differences with other reflectors?
Yes. So my first initial interaction with a reflector was intense. This person, like when we initially met, it felt good, but it was almost like we were too, I look at it like, so I think of a reflector as like clear quartz. So you set them in the center of all these other crystals and it's like they amplify the energy around them. So when you have two of them together, it's almost like it feels very like energetic. And so we were like talking over each other and super happy and like, but this person like was my first reflector experience and it was just like not great. That first one, it was just wasn't that great. So, but I also needed to reflect on myself and how like I process things and how I talk to people. Like, am I being too rude? Am I being too straightforward? So it just gives me that moment to like analyze myself again. But I have met other reflectors. I had a reflector group on Facebook for a little bit. We were like all testing things and sharing our experiences. But there were a few that I got close with. They are different in the way that they express themselves. And their energy feels different to me. So each one, their energy feels different, but they feel intense. No matter what reflector it is, like they feel intense. Yeah. But I would say that each one that I've met, no matter what, always goes MIA. like they go like hermit mode, and then they're like out here like doing a bunch of stuff, and then it's like hermit mode, and like I mean for weeks or months. Like I was saying, like my one friend that owns a business, and he like would go into town for like a week, and then he'd be gone for months. Like any reflector I've talked to, like they do this. Like it's like their same like MO. Like all of us do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reflectors in my life, they definitely do that. And I just allow it. I mean, and it was difficult at first with my sister because it was like my sister. But then I'm like, oh no, I'll just let her, I just let her do her thing.
Yeah. And there was some guilt.
Yeah.
With like Sarah Teresa, like with my close, like intimate group, like I felt guilt, and I was doing shadow work and integration at the time, but I just felt like I have these amazing people and I don't want to talk to anybody right now. Like I just was like to myself and like completely MIA, and I was like, oh, I hope they understand. And the fact that like they do, they can hold that space, and when I'm ready to talk, they're there. It's like needed as a reflector.
Yeah. Comforting. That feels like warm and comfy to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it feels. I'm like, yes. Yeah.
All right. I think that's all the questions.
Great.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for making us Finsta just to talk to us.
Yeah. I'll leave it up for a little bit. I think some people followed me, so like they have questions. You guys can DM me.
Back in.
We'll direct them to your TikTok, and you can go check her out.
Yeah, TikTok. Check that out. You guys are gonna be like, whoa.
Wow.
Well, they'll either love it or hate it.
Yep. Yeah. There you go.
Just know she's spitting some truth, no matter what's coming out of her mouth.
Yeah.
Judgment sense.
Dun, dun. Well, thank you guys. I love your guys' energy. This was exciting. I felt like I needed it, and it's nice, like just explaining what I've experienced. I think that's what reflectors are meant to do, is just explain what they're experiencing.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I always love hearing what you have to say. So it's great to have you on.
Yeah, some people don't ever meet a reflector, or they don't know. And even in the human design community, we have a lot of people that are in the community that watch these, and they're like, you know, any information we can get about reflectors would be great. So lived experience really helps.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, like that there's like not a lot of information. I just feel like, I don't know, we need like a reflector group or something. Another one. But I had a meditation retreat I went to, and like the human design group there, like the guy that was talking about it, he's like, a reflector? He was like, like treating me like a unicorn.
Yeah.
He was like,
you are kind of a unicorn.
Yeah.
So interesting. But thank you guys so much.
Yay, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us. Bye.
Bye.